Good morning and welcome to Beyond the Lines podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Watson, on this wonderful Wednesday. A lot to cover today. I hope everybody's having a great day. It's chilly. We're having snow flurries, just the usual, no big deal. So we're going to do some screen sharing today. Wonderful. Yep. Lots to cover. So if you've read the news today, you see that there is also a lot going on. We have the government shutdown that is now, I guess, reopened. The government reopened. Do not do this to me. Do not do this to us. We are having a good run. Let us be. Let us be Wi-Fi. Let us be. And so we have the release of the Democrats released Epstein emails. And then we're going to watch some Heather Cox Richardson, of course, because I noticed her saying it twice. And I just had to go to do my own research on whether MAGA voters did, in fact, switch in this last election and vote Democrat. Did MAGA, well, the claim is MAGA voted Democrat in this last election as a referendum against Trump. So let's see if there's even any weight to that claim. I have a cat that's trying to get out, so let me let him out, or else I'll be in trouble. Oh, no, come on, keep us going. Here we go. Keep us going. Here we go. Okay, we're going to go to the first of the, what we're doing here is, and this is obviously also what we like to do, social media literacy, So we're going to do that, and you can just judge for yourself, right? Okay. So if we go to, we're going to do a couple different things here. We're going to go to X, and then we're also going to go to WAPO. And we're going to read what the article says. Okay, very good. Screen share. How's this look? We got it here. Very good. Wonderful. So here we got it. The Oversight Dems posted, and among others, posted, Oversight Dems have received new emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate that raise serious questions about Donald Trump and his knowledge of Epstein's horrific crimes. Read them for yourself. It's time to end this cover-up and release the files. Release. Okay. So let's just click on this. And is this as good as it gets for us as far as the zooming in, I suppose? So we have here, I want you to, so Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, it looks like here, Saturday, April 2nd in 2011, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. The victim's name is blacked out. Spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. Okay. Another email sent from It looks like Epstein to Michael Wolff. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. Ghislaine to stop. Okay. And then this other one here from Michael Wolff to Epstein. I think you should, it's a high importance. I think you should let him hang himself if he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house. Then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his view either on air or in Scrum afterwards. Okay. And then the question there in the middle was, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? Okay, so those are the things there. Those are the emails, these emails that came out that, you know, should be telling us everything. Okay, so this is what the New York Times posted. Breaking news: House Democrats released emails in which Jeffrey Epstein alleged that Donald Trump knew of the convicted sex offender's conduct and spent hours at my house with the victim. Okay, so let's also go to, we're going to stop sharing that real quick. And then we're going to go to the Washington Post article here. So WAPO also posted newly released Epstein email claims that Trump spent hours with the victim. Right. Okay. So they're posting it on their main page here. WAPO. Release the files. Okay. Okay. So then if we also go to, what is so let's see here. I mean, okay, let's do first things first. Let's go to, I'm going to check the link here. So the Oversight Committee posted, why did Democrats cover up the name when the estate didn't redact it in the redacted documents provided to the committee? It's because this victim, Virginia Giuffre, publicly said that she never witnessed wrongdoing by President Trump. Democrats are trying to create a fake narrative to slander President Trump. Shame on them. Actually, where did Grok actually commented under here? Grok. So I can't find it here. I guess I'd have to pull it up on my, is this it here? So Grok actually said the emails newly obtained by House Oversight Democrats from Epstein's estate contain Epstein's unverified claims that Trump knew about underage girls recruited by Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago and spent hours with one victim there. However, they offer no proof of Trump's involvement in crimes. Epstein, a proven liar, was alleging this in private correspondence years after Trump banned him from the property over inappropriate behavior. This recycles known associations without new evidence of complicity or a cover-up. Trump publicly cut ties in the early 2000s. And Richardson and some of the Democrats want to talk about this senator from Arizona. Do you guys know about this? A senator from Arizona who has not been sworn in yet. Something about a official in Arizona hasn't been sworn in yet, or else she would be the first to put a bill out there. To put a bill out there about releasing the Epstein files. That the reason why Johnson won't swear her in is because she would have enough power to enforce the Democrats to release, the files or whatever. But you also have Marjorie Taylor Greene over here saying that she would read the names on the list, on the Epstein list. She would read them out loud. So it's hard for the Democrats to play and the media messengers to play both sides and say, well, only the Democrats that are advocating for the release of the Epstein files, because it's not. It's also Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's Nancy Mace, it's Luna, it's Thomas Massey, all these MAGA people. Although Thomas Massey, I suppose, is not necessarily MAGA necessarily, but so it's this perception that it's Republicans only withholding the Epstein files. The Democrats are getting billboards with the money that they have. They're getting billboards that say release the files, release the Epstein files. So I know that that's a point of contention for a lot of people and what that means, and that we should be focusing on that and whatnot. And I don't disagree that that's not something that needs to come out, but the bigger story behind that is that what was, because the victims are, Virginia, she's already had her story out and everything, and then there's a couple other victims that are having trials. And so I think Marjorie Taylor Greene also, when she was on The View, she was talking about that and bringing it to the awareness of the public, is that it's exactly what is something that we could all agree on, right? This is not just a Democrats are advocating for this issue. And but no, I do see that is Mike Johnson. I mean, yeah, I think everybody's agreeing that, Mike Johnson is not favored. So I don't think anybody disagrees about that. And then as it's related to the Epstein files, but it's also the government shutdown. What are they able to do and not do? And but the public knows, you know what I mean? The internet knows. So if we go to if you go to X, and if we have anybody here from Blue Sky that just wanted to check it out, I don't know what you would find over there, but if you just plug in Epstein in X, one of the things that pops up is leaked documents show Israeli officer Yoni Koren stays at Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. You see that there? So this was just updated, updated 5 minutes ago. Investigative reporting from Dropsite News reveals emails and schedules indicating that Yoni Koren, a senior officer in Israel's military intelligence directorate and aide to former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, stayed multiple times at Jeffrey Epstein's Upper East Side property from 2013 to 2016. The documents detail Epstein's involvement in a $10,000 wire transfer to Koren in 2015 amid back-channel diplomacy efforts. This reporting expands on earlier leaks connecting Epstein to Israeli security pacts with nations including Mongolia, Russia, and Ivory Coast. Right. So it's not so much, this is what I would tell my, my friends, my Democrat friends, is that it is not so much about the victims, which, Ry Dawson has done a lot of, reporting on this. And that's not, it's not so much about the victims, although it's all about the victims. I'm saying getting justice, that's part of it for sure. But is it still being used as a blackmailing operation is the thing that is what a lot of people are wondering, or, asking about or doing research on, and asking for public disclosure on. So Caitlin Johnson, if you guys can still see this, one of the craziest things happening right now. So let's see. So let's make sure. There we go. Caitlin Johnstone writes, one of the craziest things happening right now is how there's been report after report after report showing that Epstein really was an Israeli intelligence operative based on publicly available documents, and yet it's had no measurable impact on mainstream media or politics. And it looks like here she included a bunch of headlines. One being Israeli spies stayed for weeks at a time with Jeffrey Epstein in Manhattan. Jeffrey Epstein, the Mossad, how the sex trafficker helped Israel build a back channel to Russia amid Syrian civil war. Jeffrey Epstein helped broker Israeli security agreement with Mongolia. Jeffrey Epstein helped Israel sell a surveillance state. And then if we move down here a little bit more, we see that Matt Gaetz is talking about it. Not surprising. Here's an article that Ryan Grimm posted. Yeah. So the liberal media, the Democratic Party, Substack Richardson faction of the blue and non-blue sky faction of the Democratic Party media is doing a release of the Epstein files narrative to their audience, right? That this is like a huge thing, that the Republicans are stopping it. Although we know Marjorie Taylor Greene has said she's going to, we could even look that up here. Okay, so this was from September 3rd. I actually came across this. I thought it was early. I thought I had seen it recently. Marjorie Taylor Greene said the victims want to give her the names of the clients list they have due to their fear of backlash. She will go to the floor and read every damn name personally. This is also in alignment with Marjorie Taylor Greene going on The View, right? And doing that dissemination of information to the quarantined Biden voter demographic that has been trained to not trust Trump, not trust anything that they hear that's not from their sources, which is New York Times, Washington Post, Richardson, the coveted few. So that was a really good thing that was a turning point, I think, for the public to be able to see those two narratives clash, and for Marjorie Taylor Greene to come out preferable, popular, and strong, and without backlash and the defamation that she's used to. We did get a comment here from YouTube. Bad week. Death writes, bad week perception-wise for Trump, H-1B, Israel, and Silicon Valley. I don't disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree. And I was thinking about going into the H-1B here and looking at the ways that the Democrats would run the story of H-1B, right? So we're looking at it and we're like, well, we don't agree with that. But how are the Democrats going to run it? And he can't be anti-immigration if he's giving visas to people who are here, have gone through the channels legally. Do I agree with all the rhetoric he says about? Of course not. I disagree with handfuls of rhetoric that he says and does. So, but I'm looking at it from that perspective too. Like, what how would the Democrats run this? And like I said, I mean, the whole thing that the bad optics for him with ICE and the National Guard and such that the Democrats want to do is that there's undocumented, or no, I'm thinking of the Obama clip where he was talking about undocumented people. It appeared to be that he was talking about undocumented workers or undocumented people being able to vote. That's what it appeared to be with that interview with him and that other girl. If you guys remember that before the election, a week and a half ago or whatever. But the whole thing was about the bad optics for him with that, and what the Democrats run with is that they are arresting legal citizens, that they're not just going after people that committed crimes, but that they're going after American citizens and people that are documented. And so a documented might be somebody who has a green card, or it expired, or they did everything that they could and maybe they just missed their appointment. They've been in the country for 10 years and they have so on one hand, again, without doing my research on it at all, looking into it, my initial sense was that, well, on a positive note, you could, or on a positive note, on a non-negative note, you could look at it like that it could be not terrible if it looks like he is allowing people that have been here to go ahead and get their citizenship, that have contributed, if they can prove that they've contributed to society, like a resume, right? Like if they can prove that they've contributed to society, they have a family here, they have community, they are working, this is their value. And so no, I don't agree with everything that he says in the way that he says it, but he says things for different reasons because he's speaking, as you know, I'm sure he's speaking to multiple different groups of people at the same time. And so we're not going to agree with everything that he says, and I certainly don't. Yeah, and as far as Silicon Valley, I mean what specifically about Silicon Valley? Yeah, a lot of things there. We've been following David Sachs since he was on the All In podcast. That's a pretty good one. We were just watching the Pete Buttigieg shit show the other day with Pete Buttigieg on there. So that was funny. So if we're going to go on here too, we are at, let's see, we're at 20 minutes here. So let's go into switching gears a little bit. And we'll go to crossing our T's and dotting our I's. Oh, I wonder if I can show this. Let me try. Yeah, look at that. Okay, this is just a test. I'm just making sure I can actually show that on the screen. But yeah, I don't disagree, Death. Thank you. Thank you for commenting. I appreciate it. Like and subscribe. We're streaming actually live to YouTube for the first time. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. All right, so we'll pull that off there. Cool. That's fun. Yeah, I used to be able to do that in a StreamYard. I don't know. I couldn't include them anymore. All right, let's see if we can go to. So here's the whole thing about Richardson. And I hope that everybody can hear me, and it sounds like maybe you can. So everything is set up here for us. While we go find the Richardson clip, maybe we can listen to some of the rock music, right? Cool. All right, cool. Some of the rock music. Okay. All right, let's go to Richardson. Like, what is that? What do they call that? Inception or whatever. Okay. So I know we're watching a clip of the show. I get it. But I was able to do this because I want to talk about something that Richardson said here. Okay. All right. And if you're new to the show, thank you for joining. But we have been covering, AKA tracking the one and only, the great professor herself, Heather Cox Richardson, for probably, it's been about 2 years, probably going on 3 years. And just so you know, I came across her at one time as I was learning about all of these things, as perhaps you have as well. We all sort of just found ourselves in this place of, what the hell is going on? And so we had to sort of figure it out, and we had a lot of narratives to disseminate and a lot of things to go through and understand and track and everything. And so I had come across her because I thought, oh, she's a historian, like from a historical perspective. Like, it sounds like this is going to be really helpful because I really realized how much I don't know. And so that has been the theme, as perhaps you may have also experienced, is that there's so much that we don't know. And we learn every day how much we don't know, but we certainly didn't know our rights, and didn't know that we had to advocate for them, and didn't know that you could just shut schools down and you could just mandate all this stuff, and what was constitutional, what was unconstitutional. And then we had to wait and find out what the courts decided and told. And then there's elections, and then there's pandemics, and there's war and rumors of war. And there's all these things that we were trying to figure out, right? But we also learned that there were multiple sides to different stories, and different people, depending upon what you were listening to, were saying different things. And then you also, as a person, were saying different things than what the establishment narrative was. And so then it started to become tricky, because it felt like you were being asked to ignore your eyes and your ears, right? And your own lived experiences. You were being told the economy was good, but you're like, I am having a hard time, and a lot of people that I know are. And you were like, but there's this pandemic, and you're like, but why do we have to take, I don't know how much we're allowed to say on YouTube, but like, right. So the asymptomatic, all that stuff that there was a lot of questions, and we were sort of gaslit and curious as to why this was all happening. And then we learned about the different narratives. And so when Heather Cox Richardson came across my desk, I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity for me to check my blind spots. Where's my bias? Where's my hypocrisy? What more can I learn here? And I fell into all the traps. The hag archetype, hook, line, and sinker, guilty as charged. So I started to listen, and I was like nodding my head, and I agreed. And then I was like, I don't agree with that. That is not true. It's not just the narratives about Ukraine, and the narratives about the pandemic, and the narratives about the administration, and about Trump, and about Russia, and all the things, J6. And I was like, I've entered the twilight zone here, it seems, because this is being elevated as this official source, like the official perspective. And so I was very confused, and had to learn more. Clearly, I had to learn more. And so I'm still learning more. So we're tracking, we're listening, we're following. We don't disagree about everything. We, though, do recognize to call a spade a spade. And so one of the things that I've heard her say recently is that when she's talking about this, when she's talking about the last election, and then please go to the last shows if you're interested. Just the last couple. This was the Marjorie Taylor Greene one. I thought it was really good because it went over some of the Mamdani stuff, and sort of the questions that we have related to what it is that Richardson's saying. And she's not alone, by the way. I mean, she's just elevating other people's talking points, but other people also elevate her talking points. And she's quite very popular. She has the #1 subscriber base on Substack. That's like her big rise to fame, is that she skyrocketed on Substack. So she has a huge following on Facebook, over 3 million followers now. So just gets hundreds of thousands of views and everything, goes live a lot. I mean, the chick works her booty off. You know, I don't know, you know, her living, you know, what she's doing for a living now, is far from what we're doing. But we try, we're working, we're chugging along. Like I said, we're streaming live now to YouTube. So we'll see. We've been on Rumble for 2 years. And so all of our old videos and shows are on Rumble. So you can check those out. And all the different topics, we go into all different things. But anyway, so here I noticed her saying that when she's talking about the elections on Tuesday, and we went into that blue strongholds, went to the whole thing. One of the things that struck me that she said was that this was a referendum on Trump, which we assumed that that's what they were going to say. And then we sort of countered that by saying, well, these were blue strongholds. And even Marjorie Taylor Greene did on The View, where she said, well, Kamala took these 3 states. You know, this didn't come as a surprise. A lot of people say that the main media making results of the election on Tuesday did not come as a surprise. And as Marjorie Taylor Greene said, it wasn't so much a referendum on Trump, but more so on a reflection of where the Democratic Party is. We spent time with Richardson talking about her or whatever she's communicating to her audience about what she thinks is going on in this moment in time. Which a little bit of pieces I would agree with, but it is very interesting. And so I would recommend if you're interested to watch that. But so one of the things that she said that really struck me was that she was saying, you know, this was a referendum on Trump, but also that MAGA actually came out and voted Democrat in this election. Super interesting that she would say that. So she said it in this clip, and she also said it last night. So we're going to watch that. And then we're going to look to debunk it and see, did MAGA vote for Democrats in this last election? Okay. Let's go to where we're at here.
Visceral repudiation of what the Trump administration has been doing. And in the districts that by far more points than people expected them to toward the Democrats, what you saw actually was not just Democrats voting, not just Republicans voting for Democrats, but even MAGA crossing the line and saying we're going to vote against the Trump administration.
Nobody said that. Nobody. Okay. All right. So I would agree there that nobody said that. It's a conception. That nobody said that. So she's saying, let's listen to it one more time. So we're making sure. That are being told.
It was the very visceral repudiation of what the Trump administration has been doing. And in the districts that went by far more points than people expected them to toward the Democrats, what you saw actually was not just Democrats voting, not just Republicans voting for Democrats, but even MAGA crossing the line and saying we're going to vote against the Trump administration.
Nobody said that. Okay, so now one of the things that I can, pretty much the only thing that I can think of that would prompt her to say that is because and she said at one point that MAGA influencers on social media, I'm assuming X, are saying I'm done with Trump. Okay, which you would agree probably. You go to X, you find, I mean, we could do it right now. You go to X and you could find a MAGA influencer who is been done with Trump, right? Because of all the reasons, because of the war in Iran, because he hasn't released the Epstein files. I mean, even our guest Death, who came on and commented about it. But this has been a criticism of the Trump administration, right? There are definitely criticisms, and that isn't that so interesting, because one of the criticisms against MAGA is that they blindly follow Trump. They don't ever criticize him, and that has been their whole MO for how long? Is that MAGA can't think for themselves and they just follow him and they don't critique him at all. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And we've gone over that a lot. But Richardson will even support that claim that MAGA actually does hold their elected officials' feet to the fire. And this is what we voted for. This is not what we voted for. And so if she were to give credit where it's due, she would credit, like, again, Marjorie Taylor Greene for one. So I did hear her say something about people on social media, MAGA influencers or representative. Come on, Wi-Fi. Let's keep it going. The grift is not representative of voters, right? Okay, and the people that are commenting that are done, the people that are commenting on X that they're done might have a different agenda, and we can sort of look at that and say that these people are, the black pill knows no bounds, right? And some people flip, right? They build up audiences and then they flip. And then that's part of these different strategies of all the things, right, that we're familiar with. So that to me is not strange or surprising that you have quote unquote MAGA influencers turning on Trump publicly. Maybe do. Let's go. Let's keep it together. Death asked, how was turnout? Yeah, so that's what we were just talking about here, is that we're going to look into the claims that Richardson's making. So, and trying to understand where she's getting her information from. And if she's just using, because I would not use, Barbie, insurrection Barbie or whatever, because MAGA did not vote Democrat. Okay, they may have not voted. Okay, people that are Trump supporters, okay, or someone who considered themselves to be MAGA, or MAGA in general, okay, Trump supporters in general, they did not then, their way of doing a referendum on Trump might be to go on social media, might be to call their representative, or to just not vote at all. And I would be more likely, I'd be more inclined to go in that direction, because if we looked it up, and I'm not sure, that maybe Republican turnout was not as great as we would have liked, we would have expected. Again, they were all the tit for tat and dissect the data points of the down ballot races. We could do that. And I, for one, in my area, a number of Republicans went uncontested. So there is no evidence, again, just for me, just in my sphere, my empirical and anecdotal evidence does not support that there was any at all, let alone significant flip from the MAGA voter to Democrat. You understand? Nobody's doing that. Just so So she suggested it once, and here we're going to play it again that she suggested it twice. So we're just going to, I was going to leave it alone, but since she brought it up again. So Death, we're going to get to your question, which is how was turnout? Yeah, we're dissecting that now. Okay, so let's go to this video here.
Back on the table. That is, they got absorbed by MAGA and by Donald Trump, and there still are plenty of want, the same way I always talk about us creating Lincoln. But similarly, the Republicans
seem now says that way. Let's just spend a little time here real quick.
We are seeing quite dramatic changes in both parties. The Democrats are changing really pretty dramatically right now, and I think that's why people who are newly involved or newly aware of just how bad things have gotten are frustrated right now. But the more you speak up about that, the more we will create the leaders we want, the same way I always talk about us creating Lincoln. But similarly, the Republicans seem now to me to be back on the table. That is, they got absorbed by MAGA and by Donald Trump, and there still are plenty of viciously MAGA people. Right now, the president is MAGA and running things. But increasingly, and if you look at the results of Tuesday, which also have a huge play in here, a lot of the people who voted for Democratic candidates last Tuesday had voted MAGA in 2024. So all of a sudden, all that stuff is back on the table. And to my mind, frustrating though it is to step backward, there's an awful lot of signs that the efforts people are putting into moving forward are, at the very least, messing up the status quo and quite possibly creating a different set of coalitions to move forward into something very different. So I don't know. I just started out by saying I don't know where it goes. I really don't know where it goes. But the other piece of
okay. So we are going to listen to the rest of what she's saying. Okay, we're going to listen to that. And we might actually listen to that one again. So what she's saying is that MAGA actually came out and voted. So why are they saying this? Why are they suggesting? Why are they framing it this way? That they want to frame it like MAGA came out and voted for Democrats. What would be the point? What would be the benefit of framing it that way? Does it have to do with the number of voters? Because that doesn't really like, you could say Republicans voted for Democrats, right? That would make sense. Sure, there's a lot of anti-Trump Republicans. There's a lot of Republicans who, would vote for Democrats. There's independents that just vote based on who, they want to vote for. They would then on oftentimes, like in swing states, for example. But to say and imply that MAGA came out and voted for Democrats, that doesn't make any sense. Like Virginia, for example, why would MAGA wouldn't vote for that woman who won? Who would MAGA vote for in New York? The Republican candidate. Look at what Marjorie Taylor Greene said. Okay. She's sort of, she's been MAGA, she's America first. I mean, she's sort of the, she's MAGA, So listen to what she's saying. She's saying that she would have voted for the Republican candidate because she wouldn't have voted for Cuomo. because of all the things that he, the things that he did in 2020. He was one of the most unliked people in the whole country, as one of those governors that was facing lawsuits about putting, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf did it too, putting COVID positive patients back in government funded nursing homes. In the state of Pennsylvania, that's where 2/3 of our early deaths occurred. March and April of 2020 was because of those positive patients going back into those nursing homes the government runs. Levine pulled their mother out of those homes. That was the director of health, who then Biden turned into, the position that Bobby Kennedy has now, the Health and Human Services Director now. Dude, wild what we've been through and what we've seen and what has been, what we've seen and what has been seen. So, and they're not voting for Mamdani. Is MAGA voting for Mamdani? No. Are they voting for, and the candidates in New Jersey? No, I mean, a lot of the brand of MAGA, the MAGA movement, has been calling out the elite establishment, okay? Calling out the ruling class, calling out these, the political ruling class, okay? So the Democrats have been on the chopping block, okay? But the Republicans are also on the chopping block. That's the difference, and that's what we're encouraging you to do. And it seems like, in a way, at times, you're doing that. You're doing this. You're bringing up Lincoln. You're talking about, like, in a couple shows ago, we reviewed you talking about Schumer, like, hey, we're going to do our own thing now. We're going to leave these people behind, in a way, like you were insinuating that. And there's a conflict in the Democratic Party right now. So as far as, like, the future of it, who is leadership, are they actually representing voters, constituents? Are they actually upholding their promise to voters? Right. So this has been a criticism of the Democratic Party for so long. It's really nice to see people getting on board now, because MAGA has been saying this whole time. Okay. And the reason why they went Republican is because Donald Trump came in as an independently wealthy and having his own sphere of influence. He came in through the Republican Party and transformed it from within. And then you saw Republicans retire, not stay in politics. Mitt Romney, as an example, Liz Cheney, Adam, all these people that, right, there's been a rotation of elites in the Republican Party. Okay. And if you're not including this in your analysis or your assessment of what's going on right now, I don't know I don't know how to help you. But it is misleading to your audience and to people that, are looking. So those who are in the Democratic Party who are recognizing this now and saying, like, we have to hold our elected officials accountable. So that's the difference. So MAGA actually holds Republicans' feet to the fire the same way that they do Democrats. They just see that the Democratic Party is in a different spot, having to do with their elite establishment that is in charge of the donor class, and then also the voters themselves. But this was a pretty overt example of how that split in the Mamdani Cuomo race, which I think that we watched in this clip here, or I'm sorry, the one that we just watched. We go into that a little bit, and I think that that's really helpful. So let's listen again to what she says, and then let's do a little bit of our own digging on it.
Frustrating though it is to step backward, the candidates last Tuesday had voted MAGA in 2024. So all of a sudden, all that stuff is back on the table. And to my mind, frustrating.
So weird.
Need to be back on the table. That is, they got absorbed by MAGA and by Donald Trump, and there still are plenty of viciously MAGA people. Right now, the president is MAGA and running things, but increasingly, and if you look at the results of Tuesday, which also have a huge play in here, a lot of the people who voted for Democratic candidates last Tuesday had voted MAGA in 2024. So all of a sudden, all that stuff is back on the table. And to my mind, frustrating though it is to step backward, there's an awful lot of
all that stuff is actually okay back on the table. Okay. So, okay. So this is how they're rationalizing that it's not just Democrats doing a referendum on Democrats. It's MAGA actually coming out. It's because that's more meaningful. They have to do this because the whole reason the MAGA movement and Trump was successful from a voting perspective is because because the Republican Party under Trump became a big tent party. You had MAHA coalition. You have DNI Gabbard. You have her. She was an independent, right? And so she was a Democrat, and then she switched in, right? So you have Bobby Kennedy, right? So you have libertarians, again, independents. You have people that were Democrats. And we have made the argument that MAGA is far closer to what the old left represented and is a populist movement that is focusing on economic populism and the working class. And this anti-war perspective, not just because war is hell, but because it's costing the American on the backs of the American taxpayer. So we can't be dishing out all this money all the time to other countries when our own country is suffering. Our health insurance is in crisis. Our medical system, just the mental health and the medical professionals. Do we have the people that we need? Do we have enough facilities? So our education system, just working conditions, right? And that the wealthy have gotten more wealthy, right? And just with the pandemic and the shutdown and stuff, I mean, you could just see it clear as day that like Walmart was allowed to stay open, but all the small businesses had to close. So just all of that. It does not make any sense. And the only reason that they're doing this and saying this is because they have to steal the MAGA playbook. They have to appropriate the MAGA playbook for themselves to try and law of attraction this rotation of elites on their end, because they don't have any other choices. They don't have any good ideas. They don't have the energy, because they have become, the liberal establishment has become so disconnected from regular people, from their voters, from the people that they promise things to, their coalitions. And so that's what has made the Republican Party and MAGA and Trump successful, is because of those coalitions and because of the new blood coming in. So when she's talking about like these new voices coming in, this new energy or whatever, coming in, she's trying to manifest and do a hyper reality that is not happening. However, what might actually be happening is people would rather support a democratic socialist or whatever they think Mamdani is. They would rather, that's where the energy is, right? And the liberal class was supposed to actually work with that energy and actually institute policy that was most preferred and popular. But they didn't do that. They broke all their promises. Obama, the Affordable Care Act, and working conditions, again, housing, actually affordability, right? Because then they started to partner and sell out. We have the NATO agenda and the globalism and the you cannot be invested in America and also investing in all of these other countries and all of these other agendas, and and the corruption and all that stuff. Death here says, I almost vomited with her love. She's a Lincoln Republican, is what she says. So I'm not going to speculate on or disdain. But the reason why I joined listening to Richardson is because I wanted to learn about history. I did. So, and I still do. So, I mean, oftentimes I do learn a thing or two. So yeah, but the thing about Lincoln and she has brought up before about encourage, seeing this moment in time that we're in, that she's creating for Democratic voters, that now it's in the people's hands, and the people need to rise up against the elite establishments. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So let's dig into a little bit here as to is this? Here we go. Here's what we're going to do just for fun. Wait, what's going on? Okay. So here's what I did, because I needed to do the research here. This is just where I started, and if I'm doing this wrong, please let me know. Is there evidence to suggest MAGA voted for Democrats in this past election? Now, I already did this on my phone, so I don't know if these results are going to be different, but I think we'll just read. Yeah, this is about what came up for me. Wait, what did I say? Did I mess it up? Wait. Oh, no. I said, sorry, let me edit this. Is there evidence to suggest MAGA voted for Democrats in this past election in November? See, it took in this past election. That's interesting. It took 2024. If this is different than the one that I have on my phone, I'm going to read the one that I have on my phone, because no. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that here. Oh, here we go. I'm going to read this and then we'll go into this. Is this looking good here? Does this work? Okay. Okay. There is, I can't access live data directly, but here's what's known from recent reporting and reputable analysis as of November 2025. There's no strong evidence that self-identified MAGA, Make America Great Again, voters, meaning those aligned with Donald Trump's populist Republican wing, shifted in large numbers to vote for Democrats in the most recent elections. Here's what political analysts and exit polling have shown so far. Core MAGA voters remain highly loyal to Republican candidates, especially those endorsed by or ideologically similar to Trump. Small defections occurred in certain suburban or swing districts where some right-leaning voters, not strongly MAGA, opted for centrist Democrats, which I would agree with that. That often due to local issues or dissatisfaction with specific GOP nominees. And this is exactly what I talked about in one of the last shows, is that on a local level, all politics is local, but it's far less consequential what their party is if they are doing something that's, that is preferred and popular in the community that they serve, right? Like a city council or, like a magistrate or different, I'm trying to think of what some of the boards, the school board. So those are often due to local issues or dissatisfaction with the specific nominee. Yeah. So sometimes it's just poor candidates. There's different reasons why people down ballot vote for different parties, and I'll tell you for an example, like a community, if somebody lives in your neighborhood or is a friend of yours and they're running for office and they're a Democrat and you voted for Trump, you might actually vote for your friend because they're your friend, So, and some communities are old school Democrats and they don't do anything differently. They've been there forever or whatever, and they just don't do anything differently, but they just happen to all be Democrats or whatever. I'm just as an example. Independent and moderate conservatives, rather than MAGA loyalists, make up most of the crossover voting detected in exit polls. In statewide races, Democrats did better than expected, mainly because of strong turnout among younger, independent, and female voters, not because of significant MAGA defections. So in short, analysts do not find meaningful evidence that MAGA voters voted Democrat in notable numbers. Any crossover was likely from moderate Republicans or independents, not Trump-aligned voters. Here's a concise summary of what major credible sources and analysis report regarding MAGA-aligned voter behavior in the most recent U.S. elections as of November 2025. I wonder if I'd like it if that was included here. Huh. Analyze 2025 off-year elections. Let's see here. Ooh, it's running away from me there. President Donald Trump's second term following held amid economic turbulence, including a record 36-day government shutdown that ended just days before voting. Huh. The government shutdown that ended days before voting? Or do they mean after voting? And Trump's approval rating dipping to 37%. The results delivered a resounding Democratic sweep. Democrats not only held expected strongholds, but flipped seats in deep red states, outperforming 2024 presidential margins in key areas. That doesn't surprise me either, because it supports exactly what we said. If you don't have quality candidates, it doesn't matter what party they're on. If it's on a local level and you have a shitty candidate, but they're a Republican, people aren't going to come out to vote for that. So this blue wave reversed some Republican gains from 2024 and boosted Democratic morale heading into the 2026 midterms, though analysts caution it's more a thermostatic backlash to White House control than a guaranteed long-term shift. Oh, and then they go into this whole thing here. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to read this here because I just wanted to, again, support, and I might even, I don't know if I can copy and paste, like get this to support as my source in the description. AP VoteCast, Associated Press, Newark at U Chicago. Voters who self-identified as strong Trump supporters, the clearest MAGA proxy, voted Republican at rates above 90%. The small percentage who voted Democrat, 3 to 5%, matched historic levels of minor crossover voting. No measurable shift. I guess the small percentage who voted Democrat matched historic levels of minor crossover voting. Key driver of Democratic wins, high turnout among younger and suburban voters, not GOP defections. You see? So Richardson is saying like a lot of MAGA actually came out and voted Democrat, right? She used those words. She didn't even say it would appear. She didn't do that. It would appear, it seems. she said no a lot. She said it twice. A lot of MAGA people, a lot of MAGA voters came out and voted Democrat. But what we're seeing here is that a high turnout among younger and suburban voters, not GOP defections. So Pew Research Center post-election analysis, the MAGA faction remained cohesive. Their approval of Trump and Trump-endorsed candidates stayed near 95%. Any erosion of Republican support came from non-MAGA conservatives and independents, particularly college-educated suburban voters, disapproving of election denial rhetoric. Really? That's interesting. 538 and Cook political report. Models show no statistically significant shift of MAGA voters toward Republicans. However, some Republican candidates underperformed in purple districts when they ran on overtly MAGA platforms, leaning to Democratic gains through turnout dynamics, not party switching. That's interesting. I'm curious what that is. Some underperformed in purple districts when they ran on overtly MAGA platforms. I'm curious what that is. A Cook political report. Democratic overperformance in key suburbs was driven by swing and independent voters, not a defection of Trump's base. 4 state-level exit polls: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Trump-aligned voters greater than 90% back GOP candidates. Wisconsin and Georgia, slightly higher cross-party voting, up to 6%, attributed mostly to candidate quality issues, not ideological conversion. And then I would also suggest that possibly in Virginia, there was not a lot of promotion of the Republican candidate, because that's what happened in Pennsylvania in the gubernatorial race. Okay. So sometimes they don't support the candidates. And if they don't think that they're going to win anyway, I mean, the Republican candidate in Virginia on the gubernatorial, she got crushed. Like crushed. And they are hostile against Republicans and against Trump, and they are driven to vote. Historically, the races after a president gets elected in the beginning of the year, or gets he said that, most likely this was going to be the case. So it doesn't surprise me if a candidate on a local level, and MAGA is more on these big policy issues. It's more the federal government. It's the whole thing. States on a local level. Okay. And so a candidate on a local level doesn't have to promote themselves as MAGA. Like, they don't have to say MAGA. Okay. They don't have to say MAGA. They can just do the work, and some of these poignant issues, maybe like the trans thing, if that's a poignant issue in your area, quote unquote MAGA candidate doesn't win in those areas, it doesn't mean that there's not a MAGA faction or, a counter culture in that area. It just means that it's not most popular. Like I said, because there's some very liberal areas where that's what they want. That's their culture. That's their area. And if you don't like it, you can, stay and fight, or you can move. And that's the same thing to go for other people. Like, if you're in a deep red MAGA area and that's what you But there's still probably going to be some sort of group of people that are there fighting against that agenda or against that vibe, against that energy, modus operandi. So yeah, the United States is a very interesting place. It's very dynamic, a lot of different places. That woman, that horrible, wretched woman, Jennifer Welch, was saying about how she's so racist. And she's talking about how we don't have any culture. The only culture that we have in America is multiculturalism. Just such a very racist woman. There's a lot of culture in the United States. There's a lot of different demographics. There's some very poor areas, rich areas, in between areas, all different kinds. You got the rural rich, right? You got the urban and the city, and yeah. And what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander. And so that's why all politics is local. But MAGA on a federal level, okay? That's why I'm not surprised by these. Come on, guys, let's get it together. It is too early to talk about even the midterms, and definitely too early to talk about, although we can speculate, too early to talk about on the federal level. But MAGA is going to do much better overall on a federal level. Okay. And also, though, but so all reputable analyses, there's no empirical evidence that MAGA voters meaningfully switched to Democrats. Instead, Democrats benefited from turnout and issue-based motivation, abortion, democracy, local economics. That's actually interesting too, because I brought that with the abortion issue, because I brought that up last time, is that I think that there are fears that states are going this is ridiculous. It wasn't even on any of the party platforms. Nobody even talked about it this last election. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild that it didn't even come up? I'm actually going to switch. Come on, guys. Okay. Very good. Okay. Well, we're over the hour mark, so let's just actually listen to the rest or as much as we can get through here in the next couple minutes of Richardson's, the last thing that she talks about here. Yeah, there's 2 minutes left here, so let's hear her out. Let's hear her out.
Signs that the efforts people are putting into moving forward are at the very least messing up the status quo and quite possibly creating a different set of coalitions to move forward into something very different. So I don't know. I just started out by saying I don't know where it goes. I really don't know where it goes. But the other piece of that is I do think there is one group that is going to determine where it goes, and that's us. I think the weight of our political system has shifted to the American people, and we can build on that. We've got to build on that, and as we do that, we'll have a lot of influence over who starts to run the table. And I don't think right now that looks like it's going to be Trump. I could be wrong. We could lose momentum and it could absolutely happen. But that's not the bet I would take right now going forward. And I think if you do the same thing, watch people, watch how they're reacting, watch the people in power, who looks like they're confident and who's scrambling. I'm not sure that there isn't real concern that the people who are going to start running the table are people like us. So, it is what it is. I'm waiting for the day to come when I'll be like, yeah, I'm done. We can all just kayak and eat M&Ms. Today is not that day, but it's also not, I don't think it's the end at all. If you think about political parties and how they're changing, it looks more like a beginning to me than anything has looked in a very long time. But of course, you might say she's been saying that for 6 years, and that would be fine as well. I have been saying it for actually more than 6 years. I've been calling out the Republicans now since 1997. But I don't see how you keep this status quo any longer with this many things in play. And I think the next couple of weeks are going to be extraordinarily busy. They're going to be extraordinarily eye-popping. As you may or may not know, the United States has moved a carrier into place near Venezuela. But I also don't think it's clear at all that the MAGA Republicans won this. The trick is going to be to make sure the American people win it over and above any political party.
This is the 2025 Aircraft Advent Calendar. Forget chocolate. Behind each of these 24 doors is a detailed model of a plane.
Already is so nuts. So she said something. Let me see if I can find it here. Come on, what's happening?
Money is like, we can't give this back. He said, with regard to not simply undocumented immigrants, should not have been able to happen. So, and that's going to go over like the Democrats did not get the extension of the premium tax credits for the Affordable Care Act, which is, crucially important. Today saying, let's just vote on it. There isn't an it. The Republicans the attempt to get rid of those insurance markets simply because the American people. And I didn't have time to talk about other stuff going on in Montana and so on. But the only
here, I just want to end on this.
More, for example, that call your Republican representatives, the ones who are saying, hey, we got to do something about extending these the premium tax credits. That matters. It matters a lot. And the more people do it and the more they yell, the more stuff is going to come down in such a way that it's good for the American people. And I didn't have time to talk about other stuff going on in Montana and so on. But the only thing I would say about protests right now is by all means complain about the direction of the old Democratic Party. But don't forget ever that the reason that the Democrats were in the position they were in was because of Trump and the Republicans. Make sure that you keep your focus on who the real culprits are here, because it's really easy to complain about the person who didn't manage. Someone said, I'm done. They didn't protect me. And it's like, they're a minority party and they did their best to protect you, but the person who's actually hitting you is the person we need to be focusing on, which is Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And by the way, that is not a partisan position. That includes independents. That includes Republicans who don't like MAGAs and what they're doing. But now is not the time to back off and say, oh, I'm done, I quit, I'm always going to get betrayed or whatever. Now is absolutely the time to speak up. I'm not sure it's worth fighting over Chuck Schumer. I'm not sure it's worth fighting over the senators who are not up for re-election and many of them not running again anyway. It is definitely worth saying, okay, you're not going to extend the premium tax credits, then we want Medicare for all, or whatever your version of that looks like. But keeping an eye on the ball here rather than attacking the only group we have right now that is able to mount any kind of resistance to MAGA and Trump is, to me, not the best use of that frustration and that anger. That being said, I do think as somebody who studies changing political parties. I mean, that's really kind of my wheelhouse. We are seeing quite dramatic changes in both parties. The Democrats are changing really pretty dramatically right now, and I think that's why people who are newly involved or newly aware of just how bad things have gotten are frustrated right now. But the more you speak up about that, the more we will create the leaders we want, the same way I always talk about us creating Lincoln. But similarly, the Republicans seem now to me to be back on the table. That is, they got absorbed by MAGA and by Donald Trump, and there still are plenty of, viciously MAGA people.
There's still plenty of viciously MAGA people. Yeah, so I think we came full circle here. She acts like the Democrats are this like minority group, dude. Like the Democrats were in office for 4 years. They were in office for 8 years before Trump. So how is this? What am I missing here? What am I missing here? They had all this time to do all these things. And yes, I guess, but all these issues are political issues that are baked into the cake. They're baked into the system. And that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene has been calling out, is that I do not know if there is a plan to actually make things, to work through this with the healthcare or whatever. I'm sensing that they just don't want the Affordable Care Act, right? They know that. But Trump has been able to make progress with the pharmaceutical industry and his Trump RX, like it or not. And so to actually do things, and Bobby Kennedy has said, like, President Trump is doing things that no other president has been able to do. And one of them is to go up against the pharmaceutical industry. So what we would like to see, and I'm here, I think I'm hearing Richardson say that as well, is that we can't just fix it with a Band-Aid with the Affordable Care Act. We can't just fix it that way because of all the problems that are in health insurance, okay, and in healthcare, and how prices are dictated, and the subsidies, and we're just continuing to fuel this system that is not working for the average American. And I would agree with you. I would agree with her that this is about the people, and this is about us having leverage and us having a voice and us actually empowering and encouraging elites to work in our favor, and they will benefit from it. Okay. They will benefit from working in the favor of their society and their people. Because if our society doesn't do well and keeps getting more sick and more unhappy and agitated, and we don't have bread and circus, we certainly don't have free bread and circus, the people get agitated, and it's not the best case scenario for our elites, right? That a best case scenario is us having a well-functioning, cohesive society where the middle class increases, okay, and the poverty, and we don't fall and dip deeper into poverty. Look at your local levels, look at your school districts, look at what the poverty level is, and look at statistically where people are falling into that line. And if the wealthier is getting wealthier, and one of the criticisms against Trump and Republicans or MAGA or whatever is that, the elites and the billionaires that got Trump elected, who do you think got Obama elected? Non-billionaires? Like, what do you think is going on? Right. And so we have to, we want to see our elites working in the best interest of our society, us as Americans, our country, investing back in our country and our infrastructure, in our economy, in the things that make people better, right? Healthier, more efficient, but just happier, right? Like not, with the environment, not poisoning all the things, that would be great. But making things affordable. Why are groceries so, why do groceries cost so much in general, right? Why is food still such a huge expense for families and people? Why is gas such a huge expense for people? Just the basic necessities have to have such an exorbitant cost on them that people are not able to get ahead. People are not able to save. Young people are not able to just pay for a house. They have to do a mortgage, a 30 or a 50-year mortgage. They have to what? Right? So this is about making an economy that works in the best interests of the people. And thank God for the things that we have seen in the progress that has been made, the detangling from foreign affairs. But I just would love to continue to see some of these things manifest. And I know that change is hard to do quickly. It certainly is. And so we don't necessarily expect it. Closing the border is obviously really important. The tariffs, and then this $2,000 that's coming back that Trump and Scott Bassett are saying would make the most sense as we're charging for tariffs and giving it back to the people. And XF has talked about this a number of times about our inheritance as Americans. You know, our family members, 1, 2, 3 generations ago immigrated here and built this country. And this country has been built on the backs of our fathers and mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers and greats and greats. You know, our family members that lost their lives in wars, that fought in wars, that are still enlisting today. So this world is our inheritance, and we have to work together. But we are relying on, again, elite establishments to get their shit together and move in the best interest of our citizens. Because because this only goes the other direction there, it works in everybody's best interest if that is the case. If we're a growing population, we're a growing economy, that would be the best for everyone. So on that note, about an hour and 26 minutes, thanks to our guests that came and commented. Really appreciate that. And hope you enjoyed the work that we did today. And like and subscribe. And I will catch you next time. Thanks so much.